She only saw the back of a man at parent-teacher's night. Tall, confident, expensive suit. But when he turned, her blood froze. It was her ex-husband, the millionaire who divorced her for being too skinny. Before I begin the story, I'd like to say a quick prayer for you, my dear family. May your days be filled with peace, your heart with joy, and your steps guided by light. Amen. If you're happy to be here, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from. And don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss a story. Thunder rolled low in the distance, a lazy growl that promised more rain before morning. In a small apartment on the east side of the city, Lila Hart pinned the final strand of her hair, staring at her reflection as if the mirror held a verdict she wasn't ready to hear. Her son, Noah, sat on the couch, swinging his legs and humming softly, dressed in a clean blue shirt and a smile that could melt any teacher's heart. "Do I look okay, Mom?" he asked. "You look perfect," she said, forcing a brightness into her voice. "Your teacher will be proud." Parent-teacher's night. She'd attended dozens as a teacher's aide before, but this was her first as a mother alone. The weight of it pressed against her ribs like a heartbeat she couldn't quiet. Her ex-husband's last words before he'd walked out still echoed sometimes, especially on nights like this. "You look fragile, Lila, like you'll break if the wind touches you." He'd meant it as a reason to leave, to find something fuller, stronger, more fitting for the image of success he'd built. But she'd learned how to bend without breaking. The school hallway smelled faintly of crayons and lemon disinfectant. Soft chatter filled the air as parents clustered around bulletin boards covered in children's drawings. Lila walked slowly, Noah's small hand in hers, her heart steady but aware. She hadn't expected much. A few conversations, polite smiles, maybe a cup of watered-down juice. She hadn't expected him. But then she saw it, a silhouette at the far end of the hall, broad-shouldered, tall, the same way he always stood, one hand tucked casually into his pocket, the other holding something. A folder, maybe. She froze. Her throat went dry. No, it couldn't be. For 2 years, she'd trained herself not to flinch at the sound of his name in magazines, not to care when his face appeared on business covers, hailed as a visionary. But that back, the familiar slope of his shoulders, made her breath falter. "Mom." Noah tugged her hand. "That's Maya's dad. She said he was coming tonight." Maya. The name struck like a spark. Noah's best friend in class. Sweet, shy, with dark curls and bright questions. So the man standing there was her father. Lila's fingers trembled. She didn't have to see his face to know. The world had too few men who stood with that same measured confidence. The calm arrogance of power learned young. It was Adrian Cole, her ex-husband, the man who'd left her because he couldn't love someone who didn't fit beside him. The teacher called everyone forward. Parents gathered, chatting in polite murmurs. Lila stayed near the back, hoping to remain invisible. But then he turned. It happened in a blink, yet the moment stretched, slow as the air before lightning strikes. Adrian's gaze swept across the room, polite, detached, until it landed on her. Recognition hit like a physical shock. For a heartbeat, neither moved. His eyes widened not with surprise, but with something deeper, older, almost disbelief. She straightened her spine, fighting the tremor in her hands. He looked older, sharper jawline, faint lines near his temples, the same piercing focus that used to unravel her when he stared too long. But behind the control, something flickered. A memory. Regret, maybe. He took one step forward. She took one back. "Lila," he said softly, voice a shade deeper than she remembered. Every sound in the room dulled. Laughter, conversation, even the hum of the fluorescent lights. She could only hear her own heart pounding. The teacher smiled brightly, oblivious to the earthquake beneath the surface. "I'm so glad both sets of parents could make it tonight. Maya and Noah have become such wonderful friends." Lila swallowed hard. "Yes, they have." Adrian's gaze didn't leave her. The teacher continued chatting, praising their children's teamwork on the class art project. Something about creativity and leadership. Words Lila barely heard. All she could feel was the heat of Adrian's presence beside her. The scent of his cologne, restrained, elegant. The same one he used to wear when he'd kiss her neck before board meetings. It took everything she had not to step away. He tried to speak again, low and careful. It's been a while. 2 years, she said evenly. A lifetime, really. He gave a faint nod. You look different. She didn't ask if he meant better or worse. The answer didn't matter anymore. Still, strange, uninvited ache crept into her chest. Because in that small moment, under the hum of the lights and the chatter of parents, it felt as though the past hadn't moved at all. Just paused, waiting for them to catch up. After the meeting ended, parents filtered out with smiles and laughter. Lila gathered Noah's art folder, careful to keep her distance. But Adrian was still there. Maya clung to his hand, and when she saw Noah, she grinned. Daddy, can Noah come over tomorrow? Please. The question hit like an ambush. Both adults froze. Adrian crouched to his daughter's level. We'll see, sweetheart, he said, then glanced at Lila, searching, maybe hoping. If your mom's okay with it. Lila forced a polite smile. We'll talk about it later. Okay, Noah? The children nodded, oblivious. They dashed off to play near the classroom door. She turned to leave, desperate to breathe again, but his voice stopped her. Lila, he said quietly, you're still teaching? Yes. And you're still building empires. He exhaled, looking away. You always did know how to stab with words. She met his eyes, calm and steady. You taught me. For a second, something broke through his composure. Not anger, not arrogance, but guilt. I never meant. Don't, she interrupted. Not here. Not ever. She turned, gathering Noah's things. But as she left, she could feel his gaze follow, not just watching, but remembering. That night, after Noah had fallen asleep, Lila sat by the window with a cup of tea gone cold. The city lights shimmered in puddles from the earlier rain. Her mind replayed the way Adrian had looked at her. Not just surprised, but haunted. She thought of the last time they'd spoken. The slammed door, the silence that followed, the legal papers that came with no explanation beyond. I can't do this anymore. And now here he was, sitting in a child-sized chair, pretending to be another parent among many. She whispered into the quiet. Why now? The night didn't answer. Only the rain began again, soft, steady, inevitable. Adrian stood in the hallway long after she'd gone, Maya's small hand tugging his sleeve. Daddy, can we go home? In a minute, love, he murmured, eyes fixed on the door where Lila had disappeared. He'd thought he'd buried the past, the guilt, the shame of words said in pride and fear. But seeing her again shattered that illusion. She looked stronger now, softer, too, but with a kind of strength he didn't remember giving her. It hit him then. Someone else must have helped her find that strength. The thought burned more than it should have. Dad. Maya tugged again. He blinked, smiling faintly. Yes, sweetheart. Let's go. As they stepped into the cold night, lightning flashed again, bright and unforgiving. He wondered if second chances existed for people who didn't deserve them. He told himself he'd moved on. But deep down he knew he'd never stop looking back. Lila woke before dawn. The gray light of morning filtered through her curtains, pale and thin. Her mind had barely rested. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw him, standing in that school hallway, looking as if time had played a cruel trick. She sat up, wrapping her robe tighter around her. There were mornings, even after all these years, when her heart betrayed her, reaching back to memories she'd spent so long trying to bury. The laughter. The way Adrian used to read the newspaper in bed while she made coffee. The way he'd whisper plans for the future. A house by the lake, 2 kids, maybe 3. A life built on ambition and love. But ambition had grown louder. Love quieter. And then it was gone. She pushed herself out of bed, determined not to start the day trapped in ghosts. But as she reached the kitchen, she found Noah sitting at the table, already awake, sketching something with his pencils. "Couldn't sleep?" she asked. He shook his head. "I was drawing Maya's family for the art project. She said she only has her dad like me. Isn't that funny?" The words pierced her in an unexpected way. Only her dad. She walked closer, looking at the paper. He'd drawn a man and a girl holding hands, smiling under a tree. Then in the corner, he'd added himself and her, two smaller figures, also under the same tree, but slightly apart. Her throat tightened. "Looks beautiful, sweetheart," she whispered. "You have a big heart." He beamed. "Maybe we can invite them sometime?" She smiled faintly, but her heart said otherwise. 5 years earlier, the world had looked different then, shinier, colder, louder. Lila had just finished teaching her last class of the semester when her phone buzzed. "Adrian." She answered with a soft smile, unaware that her life was about to crack down the middle. "Are you home?" His voice had sounded distracted, distant. "Almost. I can pick up the dinner." "No need. We need to talk." She knew that tone. It wasn't anger. It was finality. He was standing by the window when she arrived, hands in his pockets, eyes on the skyline. The suit fit him perfectly, but his expression didn't. "I can't keep doing this," he said quietly. "You're not happy." "I'm not happy. We've been pretending." "Pretending?" she'd whispered. "We've been trying. That's not the same thing." But he didn't look at her. "You're shrinking, Lila. You don't eat. You barely smile anymore. You become a version of yourself that feels like glass. I can't live waiting for you to break." The words didn't sound cruel, but they were, because underneath them, she heard what he didn't say. "You don't look the way I want. You're not enough anymore." She remembered her voice trembling, desperate, raw. "You promised forever, Adrian. You said we were stronger than the noise." He finally looked at her then, and she saw guilt, but not love. "Maybe I lied to both of us." He walked out that night. No fight, no explanation, just quiet footsteps fading into the dark. The sound of her phone buzzing yanked her back to the present. Unknown number. She hesitated before answering. "Lila? It's Adrian." Her pulse skipped. She almost hung up. "I got your number from the school directory," he continued, voice calm but uncertain. "I just wanted to apologize for how awkward last night was. I didn't mean to." "You don't need to explain anything," she interrupted. "It's done. You don't owe me anything." "Maybe not," he said quietly. "But I owe our son's best friend's mom a proper thank you. Maya wouldn't stop talking about how kind you are to her." His tone was almost warm, almost the way it used to be when he wanted to make peace after a fight. She sighed. "That's kind of you. I try to make every child in my class feel safe." Silence. Then softly, "You always did." Her breath caught. He still remembered the way she used to talk about her students, how she believed kindness could rewrite any story. But then he said something that made her blink. "I think the kids planned something. Maya told me she wants me to drop her off at Noah's after school today. I thought I should ask if that's okay." The children were planning a reunion neither parent had agreed to. Lila closed her eyes, rubbing her forehead. "Adrian, just for an hour. Supervised. I'll stay, if that makes you more comfortable." The idea of him in her apartment again was almost unbearable. Yet something in her, maybe curiosity, maybe unresolved pain, whispered, "Say yes." After a long silence, she did. "Fine. 1 hour." When the doorbell rang that afternoon, she almost didn't open it. But Noah's excited voice, "Mom, Maya's here," made it impossible to refuse. She opened the door. Adrian stood there, casual in a dark sweater and jeans, holding a bag of pastries. He looked human, less CEO, more father. The small smile he gave her was cautious. "Hi," he said softly. "Peace offering." She crossed her arms. "You always used food to solve everything. It works sometimes, She wanted to hate the way he looked at her, with that quiet awareness of every unspoken thing between them. But then Maya hugged her leg, laughing, and the tension broke. For a while, it was just the sound of children's laughter filling the living room. Lila served juice. Adrian sat on the couch, and somehow, against her better judgment, they started talking. Not about the past, about safe things, work, the children, how much the city had changed. He told her about his company's expansion, but without the usual arrogance. "I've learned a few things the hard way," he said, looking into his coffee. "Turns out, success feels smaller when you don't have someone to share it with." She looked up at him sharply. "You always had someone. You remembered." His expression froze. "Who told you that?" "It was in the news," she said flatly. "You and the investor's daughter. Maya's mother, right?" He was silent for a moment. Then he said something that knocked the air from her lungs. "Maya isn't her daughter." The room went still. "What?" she whispered. Adrian exhaled. "I never married her. That relationship didn't last. Maya isn't hers. Her mother left when Maya was 3 months old. I raised her alone." Lila stared at him, stunned. "You're saying she left you?" He gave a small, humorless laugh. "She said I was too cold, too focused, too much like the man who once left someone else for the same reasons." Her breath caught. The irony hit deep. "So now you know," he said, voice quiet. "You weren't the only one I failed." Lila turned away, her emotions clashing. Disbelief, sympathy, anger, and something else she didn't want to name. For the first time in years, she saw him not as the man who'd walked away, but as a man still haunted by it. Still, forgiveness was far from reach. "I'm sorry for your daughter," she said finally, "but it doesn't erase what you did." He nodded. "I know. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just needed you to know the truth." They both sat in silence. The rain, beginning again outside, soft, rhythmic, familiar. In that moment, the past didn't feel so far away anymore, just unfinished. When it was time to leave, Adrian stood at the door, looking down at her. Noah and Maya hugged goodbye, promising to see each other soon. He hesitated, then said quietly, "She's good for him. Maya, she brings out his confidence. And he brings out her calm," Lila replied softly. Their eyes met, not in longing, but in recognition. Two people who had been broken in the same story, still finding the courage to speak. "Thank you for letting us visit," he said. "It meant more than you think." "Don't thank me," she said. "I'm not sure what this is yet." He smiled faintly. "Maybe it's just something unfinished, finding a new start." As he left, she closed the door slowly, her heart pounding against a wall she wasn't ready to rebuild. But when she looked through the window and saw him walking down the rain-wet street with his daughter, something inside her whispered, "This isn't over." Not by a long shot. The next few days passed quietly. Too quietly. Lila found herself replaying that afternoon more times than she wanted to admit. Adrian's confession had unsettled her, not because of pity, but because of the realization that life had punished him in the same way it had once broken her. Every time she saw Noah and Maya laughing together at school pickup, she told herself it was fine, just kids being kids. Yet every time she caught a glimpse of Adrian standing by his car, waiting for Maya, that familiar pull returned, the one she thought she'd buried for good. She tried to focus on work, on lesson plans, on anything that wasn't him. But fate has a way of stirring waters just when they start to settle. It was a Friday afternoon when it happened. She was packing up her papers when her coworker, Miss Rowan, waved an envelope in front of her. "This was left in the office for you. Handwritten." How mysterious. Lila frowned. She rarely got letters, let alone one sealed in thick cream paper. She opened it carefully. Inside was a short note. Neat, familiar handwriting. "I know you'd rather not see me again, but the school's charity dinner next week requires both parent representatives from our children's class. The principal asked if we could attend together to present the art project. It's for a good cause. Please say yes. Adrian, her stomach dropped. She'd completely forgotten about the annual charity dinner. She should have said no immediately. But professionalism demanded she at least consider it. By the time she folded the note, she already knew what she'd do. She'd go, not for him, but for Noah, for the school, for closure. At least that's what she told herself. The night of the event came too quickly. Lila stood before her mirror, smoothing the hem of her simple navy dress. It wasn't extravagant, but it fit perfectly. Elegant without trying too hard. Noah peeked into the room, smiling. "Mom, you look like a movie star." She laughed softly. "You're sweet. Now hurry, your babysitter's waiting downstairs." He nodded and dashed off, leaving her alone with her reflection. Her heart was steady, but her hands trembled. 2 years ago, she'd stood beside Adrian at events like this, on his arm, smiling for cameras that captured the illusion of a perfect couple. Now she was just a guest, and he was the man she used to know. The venue glittered with chandeliers and champagne laughter. Lila walked in with practiced composure, smiling politely at familiar faces. And then she saw him. Adrian stood near the stage, in a dark suit that caught the light with every movement. He looked composed, confident. But when his eyes met hers, something softened. He walked toward her slowly, the noise around them fading into a hum. "Lila," he said, voice low. "You came." "I'm here for the children's project," she replied. "Not for the spectacle." He smiled faintly. Still the same honesty I remember. She looked away before her heart betrayed her expression. "Let's just get this over with." When the principal called them on stage, applause filled the hall. Lila held the small art plaque, a mosaic made by the children, while Adrian spoke about creativity and education. His voice was confident, smooth, and effortlessly commanding. But when he turned to thank her, his tone changed. "And I'd like to acknowledge someone who reminds us that strength isn't always loud," he said. "Miss Lila Hart has taught our children more than art. She's taught them kindness." Applause followed, but all Lila could hear was her own pulse. She hadn't expected him to say her name that way, like it still meant something. After they stepped down, she caught him glancing at her. There was something in his eyes that wasn't performance. It was memory. Later that evening, as the band played a slow tune, Adrian appeared beside her again. "Would you dance with me?" he asked. She hesitated. "You think one speech earns you that?" "Maybe I'm hoping for a second chance to say what I couldn't before." His voice was quiet, the kind that made the world pause. Against her better judgment, she took his hand. The moment their palms touched, she felt the past rush back, not the pain, but the warmth that once made her feel seen. They moved slowly across the floor. His hand rested gently at her back, steady, familiar. Neither spoke at first. Then softly he said, "You were right. I was a coward." She looked up at him. "And now you're what?" "Redeemed." He shook his head. "No, just honest. For the first time in a long time." Her throat tightened. She wanted to believe him, but belief had cost her too much before. "Adrian," she whispered, "don't start what you can't finish." He met her eyes, steady. "Maybe I'm trying to finish what I never should have stopped." Her breath caught. For a second, the world around them disappeared. It felt like the beginning again, before the storms, before the cracks. But then the twist. A camera flashed. Then another. Whispers spread like wildfire. Someone had recognized them. The divorced couple, dancing together again. Within minutes, their photo hit social media. Adrian Cole seen dancing with ex-wife at charity gala. Are they back together? By the time she got home, Lila's phone was buzzing nonstop. Messages, calls, notifications. She didn't need to read them to know the headlines. When she finally answered one call from her friend Miss Rowan, the first thing she heard was, "Lila, You're trending." Lila groaned. "Oh, wonderful. Exactly what I needed. You and Adrian Cole. That dance, people are losing it. Half the comments are about your chemistry. The other half are saying he looks happier than he ever did with his new partner." Lila's hand tightened around the phone. "He doesn't have a new partner." "Well, he does now, according to the tabloids." Lila hung up, frustration burning under her skin. The last thing she needed was to become another chapter in his public narrative. Then her phone buzzed again, this time a text from Adrian. "I'm sorry. I didn't plan for that, but I don't regret the dance." She stared at the screen, heart pounding. He didn't regret it, and that terrified her more than anything. The next morning, reporters were already outside her school gate. She kept her head down, guiding her students past the flashing cameras. The principal called her into the office by midday. "Lila, I'm so sorry about this," he said gently. "I know it wasn't your fault, but the attention's difficult for the school." She nodded, forcing composure. "I understand. I'll stay low until it dies down." As she walked out, her phone buzzed again. Another message. "Please let me explain. Dinner. Tonight. Just talk. No cameras this time. Adrian." She should have ignored it. She wanted to ignore it. But some part of her, the part that still wondered why he'd come back at all, whispered, "Go." And when evening came, despite every reason not to, she found herself standing outside the quiet restaurant he'd chosen. The city lights reflected on the window, soft and trembling. Inside, Adrian looked up, waiting. And just like that, the door she'd sworn to keep closed began to open again. The restaurant was tucked between two tall buildings, a hidden gem known for its candlelit charm and quiet corners. It was the kind of place where people came to say things they couldn't in daylight. When Lila walked in, her pulse quickened. The scent of rosemary and seared lemon filled the air. Her eyes swept the room until she found him, Adrian, already seated in the far corner, away from the windows. He rose the moment she approached. "Lila." She gave a polite nod, removing her coat. "I don't plan to stay long. Say what you need to say." Adrian gestured for the waiter to hold off. "No business first. Just dinner. Please." She hesitated, but sat down. The candle between them flickered, throwing gold across his face. For a moment, she was struck by how tired he looked, like someone who hadn't slept in years. "I owe you more than an apology," Adrian said quietly, fingers tracing the edge of his glass. "I owe you the truth. You deserve that much." Lila folded her arms. "Truth? A funny word coming from you." He nodded. "I earned that. I just need you to listen before you decide whether to walk out." She said nothing, only watched him. "When I told you that you were too skinny, that you weren't enough, I wasn't talking about you. I was talking about me." Her brows furrowed. "Excuse me." "I was drowning back then," he continued. "I'd just taken over the company, and I was failing. Every investor, every board member, everyone saw me as the young CEO who got lucky. The pressure ate me alive. And you," his voice softened, "you were so pure, so unguarded. You loved me when I didn't even like myself. It scared me. So I made you feel small because that's how I felt inside." The words hit her like a stone to chest. She didn't speak for a long moment. Finally, she said, "So that was your excuse for breaking me?" No, his eyes met hers. "It was my cowardice." Silence stretched. The only sound was the faint clinking of glasses from nearby tables. Lila inhaled slowly, steadying herself. "You know, I spent months thinking I wasn't enough for you. I starved myself trying to meet a standard I didn't even understand. You left me hollow. You don't get to rewrite that." "I'm not trying to," he said. "I'm trying to own it." The waiter came and went. Dishes were set down, barely touched. Adrian reached into his jacket pocket and slid a folded letter across the table. "What's this?" she asked warily. "Something I found last week when I was cleaning my office. It's from the day before I filed for divorce. I wrote it, but never sent it." Her fingers hovered over it, but didn't open it. He continued, voice thick. I was supposed to give you that letter instead of serving you papers. It was the truth I was too afraid to say. After a long pause, she unfolded it. You'll never believe this, but it's not you I want to leave. It's the man I've become. I'm angry all the time, not at you, but at the life I built that doesn't feel like mine. I don't deserve your loyalty or your softness, not when I miss Hollow. If I stay, I'll poison you with my bitterness, and that's something I'll never forgive myself for. If you ever read this, I hope I found a way back to being the man you once believed in. Adrian. Her hands trembled as she finished. The paper blurred behind the film of her tears. When she looked up, he was watching her. Not pleading, not performing, just waiting. Why are you showing me this now? She whispered. Because I don't want to hide behind business meetings and parent-teacher nights anymore, he said softly. You deserve to know that you weren't the reason I left. You were the reason I survived it. Her throat tightened. The anger she'd nursed for years began to fracture under the weight of something deeper. Truth. Just as she opened her mouth to respond, a flash went off by the window. Paparazzi. Adrian cursed under his breath. They followed me. Lila's chest tightened. You promised no cameras. I know. I'm sorry. He quickly stood. Come with me. There's a back exit. She followed reluctantly through the narrow hallway into the alley behind the restaurant. Rain had begun to fall, soft and cold. Under the dim street light, her frustration finally burst. Why do you keep pulling me into your chaos, Adrian? I worked so hard to build peace, and you show up, bringing your world with you again. He turned to her, rain clinging to his hair. Because peace without truth isn't peace, Lila. It's silence. Then maybe I like my silence, she snapped. He took a step closer. No, you don't. You hate it. Because silence is the one thing that still reminds you of me. Her breath hitched. For a heartbeat, the space between them charged with the same tension that used to make her knees weak. Don't do this, she whispered. Don't make me remember. I never stopped remembering. And then he leaned forward almost unconsciously, as if drawn by something stronger than will. She froze, torn between fury and longing. But before anything could happen, a voice echoed from the alley's end. Adrian. They turned. A tall, elegant woman stood under an umbrella, her expression sharp, questioning. It was Clara Langford, the head of Adrian's public relations team, and the woman rumored for months to be his partner. Lila's stomach dropped. Clara's eyes flicked from Adrian to Lila, assessing. So this is where you disappeared to, she said coolly. Should I assume this dinner was part of our new image strategy? Lila stepped back immediately, anger and humiliation colliding in her chest. Adrian shook his head, jaw tight. Clara, this isn't. Save it. Lila cut in. I should have known better. And before either could stop her, she walked away. Into the rain, heels striking the pavement like punctuation marks in a sentence she never wanted to finish. By the time Lila reached her apartment, her dress was soaked and her heart ached. She sank onto the couch, replaying the entire evening in fragments, his words, the letter, the kiss that almost happened, and that woman's voice breaking the moment apart. She told herself it didn't matter, that she was done, again, but her reflection in the window said otherwise. There was something in her eyes she hadn't seen in years, feeling. Meanwhile, across the city, Adrian stood in his office, staring at the rain against the glass. Clara was gone. So was Lila. And for the first time since their divorce, he realized something terrifying. He could lose her again, this time for good. The next morning, Lila opened her mailbox to find a letter. No name, just her address written in neat, unfamiliar handwriting. Inside was a single sheet. Miss Hart, I'm reaching out confidentially. There's something about Adrian Cole you deserve to know. His company isn't as clean as he believes, and you may be in danger being seen with him. If you value your peace, stay away. A friend. She read it twice, her pulse racing. Whatever this was, it wasn't over. It was just Beginning. The morning light poured into Lila's apartment, soft and golden. But she couldn't feel its warmth. Her gaze was fixed on the letter that sat on her coffee table. Neat, white, and cruelly calm against the wood. She read it again. Every word, every implication. His company isn't as clean as he believes. And you may be in danger being seen with him. Danger. She let out a shaky laugh, half in disbelief, half in fear. Danger? What kind of danger could a CEO bring? Her phone buzzed just then. An unknown number. Hello? Miss Hart? A woman's voice, low and professional. This is Detective Monroe with the Financial Crimes Division. I believe you're acquainted with Mr. Adrian Cole? Lila froze. What's this about? I can't disclose details over the phone, Monroe said carefully. But it would be in your best interest to avoid any public interaction with him for now. There's an ongoing investigation. He's not under arrest, but he's being watched. Watched? Lila repeated, pulse thudding. Yes, ma'am. Please don't mention this call to him. We're contacting a few people close to him for safety measures. Then the line went dead. Lila stood motionless. The receiver still pressed to her ear. Adrian. Investigated. It made no sense. Adrian was meticulous, almost obsessively ethical. But what if she'd never known the full story? She sank into the couch, the world spinning. The man who once broke her heart might now drag her into something much darker. Across town, Adrian was in his office, staring at a row of financial reports that refused to make sense. 2 months ago, he'd signed a merger deal that was supposed to push Coal Dynamics into renewable tech, a project he'd staked everything on. But now millions in funds were unaccounted for, shifted through ghost subsidiaries he didn't authorize. He slammed his fist onto the desk. Who the hell is playing with my numbers? Sir, said his CFO nervously from the doorway. The board is asking questions. And the media's sniffing around too. There's a rumor about a whistleblower. Adrian's blood ran cold. A whistleblower? Yes. Someone inside. Someone who knows your personal history as well. His jaw clenched. That last part wasn't about business. It was a threat. That evening, against her better judgment, Lila found herself driving toward his office tower. The city lights glittered like promises and lies. She told herself she wasn't going to see him, just to confirm something, to satisfy the gnawing in her gut that refused to rest. But when she stepped into the glass lobby and saw him standing there, alone under the marble archway, she realized she hadn't been fooling anyone. Lila, he said surprised. What are you doing here? I could ask you the same thing, she replied coldly. You look tired. He gave a hollow laugh. That's one way to put it. I'm being audited. Someone's spreading rumors that I'm laundering money through the company. She stared at him. And are you? His eyes flared. No. You think I'd risk everything I built? I think, she said carefully, that people hide things when they're desperate. I learned that from you. He flinched. You really believe I'd drag you into something like that? I don't know what to believe anymore, Adrian. They stood in silence, two ghosts of their former marriage, caught between accusation and yearning. Finally, she said softly, someone sent me a letter, warning me to stay away from you. His expression shifted, fear then anger. Who? I don't know. It wasn't signed. Lila, he said, stepping closer. Whoever sent that is trying to use you to get to me. Don't trust anyone. She folded her arms. Including you? His voice broke slightly. Especially me. As she turned to leave, a voice called from behind the reception desk. Miss Hart, you dropped this. The receptionist handed her a white envelope, identical to the first one. Lila's stomach dropped. I didn't, this isn't mine. It had your name on it, the woman said, frowning. Lila opened it cautiously. Inside was a photograph. A photo of her and Adrian leaving the restaurant the night before, taken in the rain, under the streetlight. But what made her blood run cold was the figure in the background, blurred but visible. A man in a dark trench coat holding a phone, watching them. On the back of the photo, a single sentence was scrawled in ink. "He's not who you think he is." Her fingers went numb. She looked up at Adrian, who was already walking toward her. "What is it?" he asked, voice tight. She quickly slid the photo back into the envelope. "Nothing. Just a mistake." "Lila, I said it's nothing," she snapped, backing away. "I need to go." She didn't wait for his reply. She ran out of the building, into the cool night air, clutching the envelope like it was burning her hand. That night she couldn't sleep. Every sound outside made her jump. Every passing car, light, felt like someone watching. Finally, at 2 a.m., her phone buzzed again. A text. Unknown number. "He won't tell you the truth. Meet me tomorrow, 10 a.m., the Glass House Cafe. Come alone." She stared at the message, heart racing. For a long time, she debated deleting it. But deep down, she knew she wouldn't. Because some part of her needed to know who was trying to warn her and what was Adrian hiding. The next morning, Lila sat by the cafe window, her hands trembling around a cup of untouched coffee. At 10:03, the door opened, and a woman in a black coat entered. Early 40s, confident, calm. She sat opposite Lila without a word, removed her sunglasses, and gave a small smile. "I'm Detective Monroe," she said. Lila's pulse jumped. "You called me yesterday." "Yes," Monroe replied. "And I meant what I said. Mr. Cole is being investigated. But I didn't call you just for that." She slid a manila folder across the table. "Inside are records from 7 years ago, right before your divorce. I think you'll find them enlightening." Lila hesitated, then opened it. Bank statements, transfers, documents bearing both Adrian's name and hers. What is this?" she whispered. "Joint accounts used for offshore transfers," Monroe explained. "Funds that moved under your signature." "That's impossible," Lila said, shaking her head. I believe you," Monroe interrupted. "Which means someone used your name back then to cover their tracks. The timing matches the start of his company's missing funds." Lila stared at the papers, mind spinning. Someone forged her identity. 7 years ago, during the very time their marriage fell apart. "Detective," she said slowly, "are you suggesting someone used our divorce to hide something illegal?" Monroe nodded. "Exactly. And whoever it was didn't just want you gone from his life. They needed you out of the picture." Lila sat back, cold dread crawling up her spine. Everything she thought she knew about their breakup, the fights, the cruel words, the abandonment, might have been part of something far more calculated. As she walked home, her mind burned with questions. If Adrian wasn't the villain, who was, and why use her to destroy him? But the answer came sooner than expected. When she reached her door, she found it already ajar. Her breath hitched. She pushed it open carefully. The apartment was dark, except for the faint glow from her desk lamp. On the table sat the same photograph from before. But this time, a new message was scrawled across it. "Stop digging, Lila. Some ghosts should stay buried." The sound of her own heartbeat filled the apartment. Lila's fingers trembled as she turned on the light. Nothing seemed stolen. The drawers untouched, the shelves neat. But that was somehow worse. Whoever broke and hadn't come for things. They'd come for her. Her phone buzzed. "Adrian." She hesitated, then answered. "Lila, you home?" His voice was tense. "Something's wrong. Someone hacked into our old bank archives. My team traced it back to a fake IP address registered under your name." "No," she couldn't. "Detective Monroe showed me the files. She thinks someone forged both our signatures years ago." There was silence on the other end. "Then she told you?" "She told me everything she could," Lila said. "And now someone broke into my apartment." Adrian swore under his breath. "Stay there. I'm coming." "No," she interrupted sharply. "Don't come here. I don't know who's watching us. If anyone sees you. I don't care, he snapped. You're not staying there alone. Before she could protest again, he hung up. 20 minutes later, there was a knock on her door. Lila opened it to find Adrian, hair disheveled, eyes wild. He stepped in quickly, scanning the room. Whoever did this knew where to look, he said grimly. They wanted to send a message. Yeah, she replied bitterly. And they're succeeding. He turned to her, jaw tight. He said Monroe showed you files. What exactly did she tell you? That someone used our divorce to move money. That my name was used on fake transfers. Adrian exhaled shakily. Then it's worse than I thought. He walked to the window, staring into the night. I knew someone was manipulating the accounts, but I thought it started recently. If it goes back 7 years, then our whole marriage was part of it, she finished for him. He turned to her slowly, expression pained. You think I used you? She hesitated. I don't know what to think anymore, Adrian. Back then, you were distant, cold, and suddenly obsessed with business, deals I didn't understand. You pushed me away, then left me. It all fits, doesn't it? His voice cracked. No, Lila, it doesn't. I pushed you away because someone blackmailed me. Her heart stopped. What? Adrian sat down heavily, rubbing his temples. It started the year before the divorce. Someone sent me a message, photos of confidential documents, things that could ruin my company. They said if I didn't sign a few transfers to a charity account, they'd release everything. Lila frowned. Charity? That's what I thought, he said bitterly. But the account was fake. When I tried to trace it, the trail led back to our joint fund. Her blood ran cold. You're saying they used my name? Yes. I think they forged your signature, knowing I'd never expose it publicly without hurting you. And when I tried to fight it, they threatened to leak messages between us, personal things. So you chose your image over our marriage, she said softly, voice breaking. No, he said, meeting her eyes. I chose your safety. They said if I didn't file for divorce, they'd ruin you too. Lila stepped back, disbelief flooding her. All this time, you let me believe I was enough. You let me hate you. He stood. I had no choice. You always have a choice, she whispered, tears blurring her vision. You just didn't choose me. He moved toward her. Lila, if I told you the truth, you'd have been dragged into it. And the people behind it, they don't stop. They destroy. She shook her head. That's not your decision to make for me. For a moment, neither spoke. Only the rain against the glass filled the silence. Then she said quietly, Do you know who did it? Adrian hesitated. I have a name, but I can't prove it yet. Who? He swallowed hard. Clara Langford. Lila blinked. Your PR manager? Yes. She was my advisor even before the merger. She had access to my financial statements, to my private accounts. When I confronted her last month about the missing funds, she threatened to bury me in headlines. Lila's knees weakened. So she's the one who sent the letters? Maybe, Adrian said. But she's not working alone. The kind of cover-up we're seeing. This is corporate level. Someone wants to take me down from the inside. Lila pressed her palms to her eyes, trying to breathe. And now I'm caught in the middle. Before Adrian could respond, the smoke alarm blared. A sharp, shrill cry filled the apartment. What the? Lila turned toward the kitchen. Adrian dashed in first, smoke rising from the window frame. Someone had thrown a burning rag through the open vent. He grabbed the nearest towel, smothering the flame. The smell of burnt fabric filled the air. Lila coughed, tears stinging her eyes. That wasn't an accident. No, Adrian said, throwing the charred towel into the sink. They're warning us to stop. Her voice trembled. This is too much, Adrian. I can't. He caught her shoulders gently. Hey, look at me. She met his gaze, and for a moment the chaos faded. I won't let them touch you, he said firmly. Not again. Something in his tone, the raw conviction, the desperation, broke through her defenses. She nodded faintly. Then what do we do? We fight back, Adrian said. But quietly. If we expose them too soon, they'll destroy the evidence. I need your help. My help? She asked. You were on those fake documents. You're the only person who can legally request access to the old accounts without raising suspicion. She hesitated. You're asking me to walk right back into your world. He smiled faintly. You were never out of it, Lila. Their eyes met, and for a second, the years between them melted away, replaced by something fragile but real. Lila took a slow breath. All right, I'll help you, but only to find the truth. After that, we go our separate ways. Adrian's voice softened. If that's what you want. But his eyes said otherwise. Later that night, they drove together to his office. The city still slick from rain. Adrian led her to his private server room, a chilled space filled with humming machines. This is where every financial record from the last decade is stored, he explained. If Clara's behind this, we'll find traces here. He opened a secure drive, typing a code. Lines of data flooded the screen. Lila's fingers hovered above the keyboard. There, look. She pointed to a folder labeled Project Aurora. Adrian frowned. That's not ours. He clicked it open and froze. Inside were detailed payment schedules, shell companies, and offshore transfers. But the real shock was at the bottom. An internal memo titled, Operation Divorce Settlement. Lila's voice broke. What is that? Adrian opened it. His face drained of color. The document outlined a timeline of their separation, complete with falsified counseling records, manipulated press leaks, and staged photographs, designed to paint Adrian as the aggressor and Lila as a liability. In other words, their divorce had been orchestrated. Every fight, every headline, every painful word, engineered by someone who wanted them broken apart. Lila covered her mouth, tears streaming down. Oh my God, Adrian whispered. We were never the problem. They were. And then the screen flickered, suddenly turning black. A single line of red text appeared. You were warned to stop digging. The lights went out. The server room plunged into darkness. The hum of the machines died, leaving only the pounding of rain outside. Adrian, Lila whispered, heart hammering. He grabbed her wrist, pulling her close. Stay still. A faint emergency light flickered on near the door, red and dim, painting everything in ghostly color. Adrian pulled out his phone, but the screen was blank. No signal. Someone triggered an internal lockout, he muttered. The whole system's offline. Can they see us? He hesitated. If they planned this far, probably. A metallic sound echoed, a distant clank, like a door being shut. Lila's breath hitched. We're trapped? He nodded grimly. Temporarily. But they won't risk being seen if the building cameras are down. That gives us a window. For what? She asked. To get out and expose them before they destroy the rest of the evidence. They moved cautiously through the corridor, guided only by the pulsing red lights. The air felt charged, heavy with danger and unspoken words. Adrian, she whispered, if they wanted to warn us, why destroy the servers? Why not? He cut her off. Because this isn't a warning anymore. It's cleanup. They reached the stairwell. A faint smell of burning insulation drifted through the vents. Lila pressed her sleeve to her mouth. Is that smoke? He opened the door. A wave of heat met them. Somewhere below, small fires burned. They're wiping everything, he said tightly. We need to get out now. As they ran down the stairs, the fire alarm screamed to life, echoing through the empty halls. They slipped into a narrow service hallway, dark, damp, and echoing with the distant crackle of flames. By the time they emerged into the night, both were shaking. Rain fell hard, plastering Lila's hair to her skin. Adrian hailed a car with his private code, a black SUV that appeared within minutes. He opened the door. Get in. Lila hesitated. Where are we going? To a safe house outside the city. somewhere no one can trace us. Adrian, this is insane. Lila, he said, meeting her eyes. They tried to burn us alive. That silenced her. She slid into the car. The drive was quiet. The rhythmic sound of wipers, the occasional flash of lightning illuminating his face, drawn and haunted. When they arrived, the house stood alone near the coast, an old family retreat he hadn't visited in years. Inside, the smell of cedar and dust hung in the air. He lit the fireplace, the glow painting warmth across their exhausted faces. For the first time that night they could breathe. Lila sank into the couch, wrapping herself in a blanket. So what now? Adrian poured 2 glasses of water and handed her one. Now we wait. Tomorrow, I contact an old investigator I trust, someone who can trace who accessed the servers. She stared at him. You always have someone for everything, don't you? He smiled faintly. Control was my armor. I built a fortress around myself because losing control meant losing everything. And me, she said quietly. His smile faded. Yes, especially you. The fire crackled between them, shadows moving across their faces. I used to hate you, she said suddenly. Every time I looked at my son, I remembered what you said, that I wasn't enough, that my body, my softness, my everything wasn't what you wanted. Adrian flinched. I know, and I'll never forgive myself for letting those words stand. Then why say them, she asked. He took a long breath. Because I needed you to hate me. It was the only way you'd let go. Her voice broke. You broke me, Adrian. I broke myself too, he whispered. And for years I've been living in the ruins. Silence fell again, heavy charged, but no longer cruel. Later, while Adrian stepped outside to make a secure call, Lila wandered to a shelf above the fireplace. A photo frame caught her eye covered in dust. She picked it up, wiping it clean. It was a picture of him, 7 years ago, at the company's charity gala. Her arm looped around his, both smiling, unaware that it would be one of the last times they'd ever look at each other with unguarded joy. But in the corner of the photo, half-cropped, stood another figure, Clara Langford. Her eyes weren't on the camera. They were on Adrian. And even in that still image, her expression was unmistakable, possessive, calculating, predatory. Lila's stomach twisted. Behind her, Adrian re-entered, his voice low. That was my investigator. He's found something. Lila turned, holding out the frame. I found something too. He frowned, then went still when he saw it. Clara's gaze burned from the photograph, like a silent confession. She was there, Lila said, even then, watching us. Adrian nodded slowly. She was supposed to manage the gala's PR. But now it makes sense. She must have started planting stories even before our marriage fell apart. Why, Adrian? What does she want? He met her eyes. Me. Lila blinked. What? She wanted me, he said simply. But when I refused her advances, she turned against me. I didn't realize how far she'd go. Until the blackmail started. Lila exhaled shakily. So she destroyed both of us just to get revenge. She wanted control, he said bitterly. And when she couldn't have it through affection, she took it through ruin. A heavy silence followed. Finally, Lila whispered, "You should have told me." Adrian's eyes glistened in the firelight. I was trying to protect you from becoming collateral damage. But it cost us everything. Lightning flashed through the windows, followed by thunder that shook the house. Lila rose, moving toward him slowly. For years, I told myself you were the villain, she said softly. That forgetting you was strength. But maybe holding on to that pain was just another way of keeping you close. Adrian's breath caught. Lila, I don't forgive you, she whispered. Not yet. But I see now. Not the CEO. Not the headline. Just a man who bleeds like everyone else. His hand lifted, brushing a strand of hair from her face. And you're still the only person who ever saw me at all. The storm outside roared, wind howling through the trees. But inside, the world went silent. When their lips met, it wasn't gentle. It was desperate. The collision of 7 years of pain, longing, regret, and love that refused to die. For the first time in years, neither of them hid. The spell broke when Adrian's phone rang. He stepped back, breath ragged. "It's my investigator," he said. He answered, pacing the room. Lila watched the color drain from his face. "What?" he said sharply. "No, that's impossible." He hung up slowly, turning to her. "What happened?" she asked. He swallowed. "The company's accounts, they're being drained right now. Millions disappearing by the minute." Lila froze. "How?" "The servers are gone. They must have created backups before the fire. And the transfers are all being routed through one shell company." "Whose?" Adrian's voice was hollow. "Yours." Lila went cold. "What?" He held up his phone, showing the screen. There it was, her name, her fake digital signature, approving each transfer in real time. Someone was framing her, and whoever it was, they were winning. The rain hadn't stopped by morning. It lashed against the windows like an endless drumbeat of warning. Lila sat by the fireplace, a blanket wrapped tightly around her shoulders. Her hands trembled as she scrolled through the news feed on Adrian's tablet. Her face filled every headline. Breaking. Former Mrs. Gray under investigation for corporate embezzlement. Anonymous leaks reveal Lila Gray's account tied to $120 million transfer. Her chest constricted. Her name was everywhere again, only this time not attached to heartbreak or pity, but crime. Adrian stormed back into the room. Phone pressed to his ear. "No. Lock all offshore accounts. No one moves a cent without my authorization." He paused, then hissed, "Yes, I'm aware what this looks like. Do it anyway." He hung up and turned to her. "They're fast. Too fast." The board already called an emergency meeting. Lila's voice was barely a whisper. "And they think I did it?" His jaw tightened. "They think we did it." She looked up sharply. "What do you mean?" He exhaled heavily. "My signature appeared on the transfer approvals too, but the IP traces back to your old work account." The realization hit like a knife. She hadn't used that account since before the divorce, before she'd even left the city. Someone had resurrected her digital ghost. They drove back to the city under a gray, bruised sky. Adrian's driver stayed silent, eyes fixed ahead. Every few minutes, Lila caught him glancing at her through the rearview mirror. Curious, judgmental. The car pulled into the underground parking of Gray Holdings. Reporters swarmed outside the gates like vultures. "Don't look at them," Adrian said, guiding her through a side entrance. But she couldn't help it. Flashbulbs burst, voices screamed. "Lila, did you steal the money? Were you working with your ex-husband? How long were you planning this?" Her throat ached as security shut the doors behind them. In the elevator, she whispered, "This is exactly how it was before." The headlines, the whispers, the shame. Adrian turned toward her. His eyes were raw with regret. "This time I won't let them destroy you. Can you really stop them?" He didn't answer. The boardroom felt like a courtroom, sleek, sterile, and cold. Half the executives looked away when Lila entered. The rest glared openly. Clara Langford sat at the far end of the table, immaculate in a cream suit. Her lips curved in that faint smile that had once seemed polite. Now it looked poisonous. "Mr. Gray," she said smoothly, "your presence here is appreciated. However, we must discuss the severe breach of trust that has compromised this company's integrity." Adrian's eyes hardened. "Cut the performance, Clara. We both know this wasn't her doing." Clara tilted her head. "Then perhaps you can explain why all the evidence points directly to her credentials." She tapped the screen. Lila's digital signature flashed on the display, along with the timestamps and IP records. "Those were fabricated," Adrian said. "We'll prove it." "And while you do," Clara replied coolly, "we'll have investors pulling out, clients canceling contracts, and the press eating us alive. You always told me perception is reality, didn't you?" Lila could feel her pulse pounding. Clara wasn't just after them. She was dismantling everything brick by brick. "This isn't about the company," Lila said suddenly. "This is about us." Every eye in the room turned toward her. "You've been obsessed with Adrian since the beginning," she continued. "And when he didn't want you, you found the cruelest way to hurt him, by ruining what he loved." Clara's smile didn't falter. "Be careful, dear. Accusations like that can sound like desperation. But for a fraction of a second, just one heartbeat." Lila saw it. The flicker of fury behind Clara's perfect facade. She'd struck the truth. That night, Adrian sat at his desk, his tie loosened, staring at rows of encrypted code scrolling across his laptop. Lila sat beside him, exhaustion etched into her face. He muttered, "There's a data trail buried deep. If we can decrypt this layer, we'll find who actually authorized the transfer." Lila rubbed her temples. "You think it's Clara? I'd bet my life on it." Hours passed. The fire died down to embers. Their world was reduced to the soft hum of the computer and their shared breathing. Suddenly, the screen flashed red. "Access denied." Adrian swore under his breath. "She's in the system. Right now." "Can she see us?" "Not yet. But she knows we're digging." He typed faster, tracing the source. A hidden remote connection masked through multiple proxies. Then the cursor froze. A message appeared on the screen. "Stop, or she loses everything." Lila's blood ran cold. "She? Who?" Her phone vibrated. She looked down. A photo message. Her son, asleep in his bed. The timestamp. 1 minute ago. She gasped. "No, no, no, no." Adrian's face went white. "Lila, listen to me. Don't panic. We'll get him back." Her voice cracked. "She has my son, Adrian." Lila's hands trembled as she dialed her housekeeper's number again. No answer. Adrian was already calling security. "I want a full sweep of her residence now. Track every camera in the district." He turned to her. "We'll find him." Tears streaked her face. "You don't understand. She's doing this because of me. I dragged you into this again." "Lila, stop." He grabbed her shoulders. "You didn't drag me anywhere. I came because I never should have let you go in the first place." She shook her head. "She won't stop, Adrian. Not until she destroys us both." He cupped her face, forcing her to meet his eyes. "Then we destroy her first." Clara called the next morning. Her voice was calm, honeyed, venomous. "Such a pity, Adrian. You were always smarter than this." "What do you want?" he demanded. "I want what I deserved years ago," she said. "Your company, your empire, and your silence." "And if I refuse?" She laughed softly. "Then the police will find the evidence they're looking for, along with your ex-wife's fingerprints on the stolen hardware." Lila's voice shook. "Where's my son, Clara?" "Oh, he's safe. For now. Children are such useful leverage." Adrian's control finally cracked. "If you touch him, then prove me wrong, Adrian. Prove you can still protect the things you love." The line went dead. Lila sank to her knees, sobbing. "She's going to ruin us." Adrian knelt beside her, his voice low but firm. "No, she's going to expose herself, because people like her always overplay their hand." He looked toward the window, eyes like steel. "This ends tonight." By evening, Adrian had assembled a private cyber team, loyal only to him. They worked in silence, tracing the false transfers, uncovering ghost accounts, and mapping Clara's digital empire. Hours ticked by. The storm returned outside, wind rattling the glass. Finally, one of the analysts whispered, "Sir, we found it." On the screen appeared a video file, a hidden feed from Clara's home office. In it, she spoke on the phone, smiling faintly. "Yes, all funds will be transferred to the Cayman Shell before dawn. Once the scandal breaks, Gray Holdings will collapse. Then I'll step in and stabilize it, just like planned." Lila's breath caught. "We have her." Adrian nodded grimly. "Now we just need to make sure the world sees it." They uploaded the video anonymously to multiple news outlets, encrypted for authenticity. By morning, it was everywhere. Breaking. Internal leak exposes Langford's fraud plot. The company went into meltdown. Investors panicked not because of Lila this time, but because the true villain had been revealed. Police raided Clara's penthouse before sunrise. She was arrested, furious, and composed even in handcuffs. Just before dawn, Adrian's phone rang one last time. It was Clara, calling from custody. Her voice was low, mocking. "Congratulations. You win again. What do you want?" Adrian snapped. "I wanted to tell you that the boy is safe. I sent him home hours ago. I'm not a monster, Adrian. Just a woman who refused to be invisible." And then, before the call ended, she added, "Tell Lila she was never too skinny. She was just too loved." The line went dead. Adrian stood in silence for a long moment, then turned toward Lila, who was already crying. Relief and pain tangled together. "He's safe," he said softly. "It's over." When they returned to Lila's house, her son ran into her arms, tears streaming down his cheeks. "Mom." She held him tight, burying her face in his hair. Adrian stood a few feet away, eyes glistening. For the first time in years, everything was quiet. No headlines, no accusations, no ghosts. Just the sound of the ocean outside and the steady heartbeat of peace. Lila turned to Adrian. "What happens now?" He smiled faintly. "Now we start over. No lies, no fear." She took his hand. "Then let's start." The first rays of sunlight spilled through the windows, touching their faces like a silent promise. For the first time, they were free. For the first time in weeks, there was quiet. No sirens, no headlines, no sleepless nights spent watching the world burn. Lila woke up in her own bed, sunlight spilling across her sheets, the sound of waves faint in the distance. Her son, Leo, was humming softly in the next room, building something with his Lego set. For a long moment, she just lay there breathing. Her body still carried the exhaustion of war, but her soul was lighter. Downstairs, she found Adrian standing by the window, coffee in hand, watching the sea. His suit jacket hung over a chair. He looked softer like this, human again. "Morning," she said quietly. He turned, his smile small but real. "You slept?" "I don't even remember lying down," she admitted. "You deserve it." She joined him at the window. The ocean looked endless, calm, as if mocking how easily life went on after chaos. For a long time, neither of them spoke. Then Lila said, "What happens to her now?" "Clara?" He nodded. "She's facing a long sentence. Fraud, abduction, digital manipulation. Her empire's gone." Lila looked down at her hands. "And ours?" He reached for her fingers, intertwining them gently. "Ours begins again, if you'll have it." Her eyes glistened. "We'll see, Adrian. Forgiveness isn't instant." He nodded, understanding, because for the first time, he wasn't trying to control the outcome. A week later, they stood before the press again, this time side by side. Flashbulbs popped. The questions were sharp, hungry. "Mr. Gray, are the allegations against Mrs. Gray officially dismissed?" "Lila, how does it feel to be cleared of wrongdoing? Are you two together again?" Lila smiled faintly, holding her son's hand. "It feels good to breathe again, and to know the truth still matters." Adrian stepped forward. "The real story here isn't about money or power. It's about redemption for both of us." He paused, glancing at her. "We were broken once, but sometimes you need to shatter to see what's worth saving." The room fell silent. Even the reporters seemed caught by the raw sincerity in his tone. When they left the conference, Adrian whispered, "You were incredible." She gave him a sidelong look. "Don't get used to it. I'm not moving back into your world that easily." He grinned. "Then I'll just have to keep earning my way in." That night, as Lila tucked Leo into bed, her phone buzzed. A restricted number. No caller ID. Her stomach tightened as she answered. "Hello?" Static. Then a low, familiar voice. Lila. She froze. Clara. You should know, Clara said softly. They'll never let you stay happy. The board, the investors. They're already moving against him. They'll use you to break him again. Lila's pulse spiked. What are you talking about? You'll see. By morning, Adrian Gray will be the man everyone hates again. And this time, you'll be the one blamed for it. The line went dead. Lila's breath hitched. She called Adrian immediately. He picked up on the second ring. Hey. She called me, she blurted out. From prison. What? She said the board's coming for you. That they'll blame me again. Adrian exhaled sharply. Of course she has one more move left. He sounded more tired than angry this time. Let them try. By dawn, the attack began. News channels blared headlines accusing Adrian of insider trading, using confidential information for the investigation to rebuild his company's losses. Anonymous sources claimed Lila had tipped him off. Stock prices plummeted. The media exploded again. Inside his office, Adrian slammed the report on the desk. They're trying to bury us alive before we can even rebuild. Lila paced, panic-rising. What if they succeed? What if they twist this? Then we fight it, he couldn't, like we fought everything else. But what if? He crossed the room, grabbing her hands. Lila, look at me. She did. We survived lies, fire, kidnapping, and public humiliation. I won't lose to paperwork. A small, unwilling smile tugged at her lips. You always did sound dramatic when you're determined. He grinned faintly. That's because I never learned how to quit. Later that day, Adrian's analyst sent an encrypted message. Found something. Not Clara. Someone else inside. Adrian's blood ran cold. He opened the attached file and froze. It wasn't Clara this time. It was Marcus Trent, his oldest friend and chief financial officer. The one person he'd trusted to manage everything while he fought to clear Lila's name. Marcus had been quietly transferring data to rival firms, framing both Adrian and Lila to crash Gray Holdings and buy it out cheap through shell companies. Adrian sank into his chair, face pale. He was my friend, he whispered. Lila stood behind him, resting a hand on his shoulder. So was Clara once. You see people's potential, Adrian, but not their hunger. He looked up at her. And you? What about me? Do I see you clearly now? She smiled faintly. You finally do. Adrian called a press conference himself. No PR teams, no rehearsed statements, just truth. He revealed everything. Marcus's betrayal, Clara's manipulation, and his own failures as a leader. He took full responsibility for his mistakes. For once, without excuse. The world listened. And when he finished, he didn't stay behind the podium. He walked down among the reporters, answering every question directly. When one asked, why should anyone trust you again? He said simply, because I've already lost everything that mattered once. I won't do it again. The next morning, the headlines shifted. Not all in his favor, but enough. The empire didn't crumble. It evolved. That evening, Lila stood with him on the balcony of his rebuilt headquarters, watching the sunset paint the skyline gold. You could walk away now, he said softly. No more chaos, no more headlines. Maybe, she said. But then who would make sure you don't self-destruct again? He smiled, eyes warm. I think I've finally learned how to live without burning everything down. Good, she said, because I'm not here to save you anymore, Adrian. He turned toward her. Then why are you here? She stepped closer, eyes gleaming. Because I want to be. He reached out, cupping her cheek. You're sure? She nodded. Completely. And for the first time, there were no conditions, no guilt. Just the quiet certainty of love reborn. Months later, on a quiet afternoon by the sea, Adrian knelt before her with a small velvet box. Lila froze, tears springing instantly to her eyes. Adrian, I'm not asking you to forget, he said. Just to start again. No empire. No headlines. Just us. Her heart ached, but this time with joy. Yes, she whispered. But if you ever call me too skinny again. He laughed, pulling her into his arms. Never again. Their son ran across the sand toward them, squealing with laughter as the waves chased his feet. Lila looked up at Adrian, smiling through tears. We made it. He kissed her forehead softly. We did. The ocean stretched endless and bright, a mirror of the new life ahead. For once, there were no ghosts left to fight, only love and the promise of peace. The air was lighter in Crescent Bay that morning. The gulls drifted lazily across the pale sky, and waves lapped gently against the shore like the world was humming a soft lullaby. Lila stood barefoot in the sand, her long cream dress fluttering in the breeze. Behind her, rows of white chairs faced an arch draped in wildflowers and silk. Music floated from a single violin, a melody that sounded like peace. She still couldn't believe it was happening. After everything, after heartbreak and chaos and fire and betrayal, this moment had found them anyway. Mom. Leo's voice cut through a reverie. He ran toward her, holding a tiny bouquet that was clearly a few stems short. He'd picked them himself. She crouched down, brushing his hair away from his face. Where's your tie? He looked guilty. Uncle Victor said I could take it off if I promised not to roll in the sand. Lila laughed softly. I see. And did you roll in the sand? Only a little. She kissed his forehead, her heart swelling. That's my boy. When she looked up again, Adrian was walking across the beach toward them. Black suit, open collar. No tie. Just like the first time she'd ever seen him relaxed. He was carrying his shoes in one hand, the sand crunching beneath his bare feet. And when his eyes met hers, the entire world seemed to hush. The ceremony was small, just family, a few friends, and the ocean as their witness. No paparazzi, no reporters, no public spectacle. This wasn't about appearances. It was about healing. As the officiant spoke, Lila's thoughts drifted not to the past, but to the long road that had led her here. There was a time she'd thought she'd never feel love again, that her worth had been defined by the cruel words of a man who couldn't see her heart. But standing here now, staring into those same eyes, change softened. She realized love wasn't a weakness. It was a choice. Adrian, the officiant, said, Your vows. He took her hands, his voice low, steady, filled with truth. When I first met you, I thought I needed perfection. I thought strength meant control and love meant possession. But I was wrong. You showed me what it means to build instead of break, to listen instead of command. You taught me what forgiveness looks like, not as a gift I deserve, but as a grace I can only honor. I don't want to own you, Lila. I just want to walk beside you every day for whatever time we're given. There were tears in the crowd, even in Victor's eyes, though he tried to hide them behind his sunglasses. The officiant turned to her. And you, Lila? She inhaled shakily, her smile trembling. Adrian, I never imagined we'd stand here again. When you left, I thought love had ended. But it turns out love doesn't die, it changes shape. It hides. It waits for us to grow into it. I forgive you not because you asked, but because I wanted to live free. And now I choose you not as who you were, but as who you become. The officiant smiled softly. Then, by the power vested in me, I pronounce you husband and wife. Cheers rose up. Leo whooped the loudest. Adrian pulled her close, and when their lips met, the crowd disappeared. The kiss wasn't fiery or desperate, it was home. The reception was held in a beachside garden strung with fairy lights. Music drifted. Laughter filled the air. Lila danced barefoot with Leo while Adrian watched, leaning against a wooden post, a quiet smile on his lips. Victor joined him, handing him a glass of champagne. You did good, brother. Adrian nodded. For once, I didn't ruin everything. Victor smirked. You tried hard enough before. Adrian chuckled, shaking his head. I know. Then his gaze softened, fixed on Lila. She's stronger than anyone I've ever met. Victor clapped his shoulder. Then don't forget it. Adrian didn't plan to. Later that night, as the guests drifted away and the lights dimmed, Lila sat by the shore. The moon hung low, silvering the water. Adrian joined her quietly, wrapping a light shawl around her shoulders. For a while, neither spoke. Then she said, "Do you ever think about what would have happened if you hadn't turned around that night at the parent-teachers meeting?" He smiled faintly. "All the time. You'd have walked out, and I'd have never known what I lost. Maybe the universe knew we weren't done." He brushed his thumb along her jaw. "Maybe the universe got tired of watching me mess up." She laughed softly. "Maybe." Then her tone turned thoughtful. "You know what I realized? We were never really enemies, just two people afraid of the same thing, being unloved." Adrian's throat tightened. "And now," she said, leaning her head on his shoulder, "I'm not afraid anymore." The next morning, the tide was low. Lila walked along the beach, the hem of her dress brushing the foam. Adrian was a few steps behind her, carrying Leo on his shoulders. They were laughing about something, a joke, a memory, when she stopped suddenly. There, half buried in the sand, was a small glass bottle sealed with a cork. Inside, a folded piece of paper. Lila bent down and picked it up, smiling. A message in a bottle. Adrian grinned. "Maybe it's from fate." She uncorked it carefully and unfolded the paper. The words inside were simple, almost childlike. "To the one who finds this, remember, the sea always returns what it takes. Sometimes it just needs time." Lila looked up, eyes shining. "That's beautiful." He took her hand. "It's true." They stood there for a long moment, the tide washing gently over their feet, the wind carrying the scent of salt and promise. And as the sun rose over Crescent Bay, Lila knew something with unshakable certainty. They had found their way back, not because fate demanded it, but because love refused to stay buried. That evening back at their home, Adrian tucked Leo into bed. When he came downstairs, Lila was sitting on the couch, her head leaning back, eyes closed. He watched her for a while, the soft lamplight painting her face in gold. Then he whispered, "Lila?" She opened her eyes. He knelt beside her, resting his head on her lap. "Promise me something." "What?" "That if I ever lose myself again, if I ever forget what matters, you'll remind me." She smiled gently, running her fingers through his hair. "That's not how promises work, Adrian. You don't get to forget anymore." He chuckled softly. "Fair enough." She leaned down, pressing a kiss to his temple. "My promise is simpler. Whatever comes, we face it together." He looked up at her, his voice breaking. "Always. Always." And as the rain began to patter softly outside, the same sound that once echoed on the night they shattered, Lila and Adrian sat together, hands intertwined, no longer afraid of storms. Because some love stories don't end in heartbreak. Some survive the fire. Some begin again, exactly where they were meant to.